So I think for me, the first thing is to be very curious. So what is driving the person that you're interacting with? Where do they want to be? Is it fame, fortune, money? What is it that they actually want? So once you've uncovered that, then obviously you need to actively listen. So it's no point asking great curious questions if you're forgetting to listen. That's not very good. And then it is about, so what can we do together? What are the steps we need to take? And the open door policy is a really good one. It's really simple, isn't it? If you implement an open door policy, it's when my door's open, anybody can come in, I'm ready. When it's closed, you might have to wait a little time before you can have my attention. So again, we're back to the contracting and being really clear about when things can happen. And some people love to work early in the morning. I've got clients that I work with at sort of 6:30 in the morning because they might be on the other side of the world. I've got others that would like to work with me late into the afternoon or evening. That really doesn't suit me. So if I'm going to be a best service to a client, quite often I'll refer a client on to someone who likes to work in the evenings if that's the best time for them, because it's not going to work. I'm not going to give of my best if I'm exhausted at the end of a long day. It's about boundaries and understanding what people want from that relationship as well. I think it's really important.
So I think building on what's just been said as well, I think be, being curious about what coaching with compassion is. I mean, we are scratching the surface in some respects, I think, in terms of this particular session. But I think, going back to, for example, the intentional change theory that I mentioned a little while ago, being really clear about what the coachee's ideal self is, what that personal vision is for them for the future, but then also recognizing where are they right now? What is their real self? At what point are they at in their journey? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Um, and what needs to be done to create a learning agenda as well? Because I think the other thing that I think is really important here is just to recognize change is not easy.
No, it feels uncomfortable sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
100%, Claire. I think, change is ultimately to make a sustained change. We need to come out of a comfort zone, and that takes time. It takes effort, and you need, for me, that this comes back to even just understanding this point. And again, I don't want to sound patronizing as I say it, but um, all too often, we live in a world whereby we want and desire change to happen overnight. As a franchisor, we want franchise partners to be performing at the optimum. Back to the numbers, back to the key drivers. But ultimately, if we're talking about sustained behaviour change, then I think we need to give ourselves space as coaches, but we also need to give the coachee space as well to understand that this is about putting in place new habits, experimenting, accepting that actually we won't get this right first time. We need to be comfortable getting uncomfortable. And I think, for me, that comes back to this consistency, if you like. We've got to have this, we've got to have the right contracting, as Jeanette mentioned, but we've got to have the right consistency in place. And that includes, Boyatzis talks about the importance of resonant relationships and creating that, not just a supportive relationship with a coach, but also creating a network of trusted relationships where people can be vulnerable. And, Rob, you mentioned earlier about some of the most successful people coming with egos. And you are so right. But if the ego is actually the driving force that's in a meeting, a session, whatever, you're unlikely to get very far if you've not created that trusted, resonant relationship between coach and coachee. So, and to that end, we've already talked about the fact that, the vast majority of people can become coaches if that's what they want to do. But not everybody wants to do that either. So, and it's part of, this is not a sales pitch, but it's part of the reason why at Franchology we have and we offer to franchisors an outsourced service. We have a team of qualified, capable, competent coaches within the Franchology team who can provide that outsourced service should that be required. Yeah, I think it's about not necessarily being attached either, other than just giving the right service to the coachee. And then another example I would share, one of the byproducts that I discovered years ago through what I now know as coaching with compassion was that sometimes through the process, franchise partners, and very often franchise partners who had created adversarial relationship between them and the franchise, or again, bearing in mind this quite often goes back to the fact that, if the amygdala in our brain is firing and we are feeling, threatened and we are stressed and we are in fight or flight mode, that's when, typically franchise partners will undoubtedly start to blame the franchisor.
Yeah.
And that's where disputes come from. And so what I've discovered by using these techniques is that actually you can help a franchise partner realize, or a franchisor. I've also had experience of realizing and helping franchisors to realize that, perhaps this business was not quite what they thought it was going to be, but helping people see for themselves if they're actually a square peg in a round hole, and how to facilitate a really positive exit management strategy if that's the case. There's a whole host of stuff that sits under this banner of coaching with compassion.